Hello and welcome to everyone joining us here live at COP26 in Glasgow. To those live here in the IFAD Pavilion, it's so good to see you all. And to those as well joining us virtually from around the world, a warm welcome to you all as well. Looking forward to hearing from you all throughout the event today. Moreover, we are honored to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Shamim Ahsan, who is the Ambassador of the People's Republic of Bangladesh to Italy and also permanent representative to the United Nations agencies in Rome, who is connected today from Dhaka. Thank you very much for being with us. This event would not have been possible without the strong collaboration between the government of Bangladesh and IFAD, and we are deeply grateful for the support, the engagement of Bangladesh and IFAD as well, received from the Embassy of Bangladesh in Rome. So please, Your Excellency, I would now like to invite you to say a few brief opening remarks.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, thank you.
Okay. At the outset, I sincerely thank IFAD for kindly inviting me to the virtual field visit on the margins of the COP26. It's my distinct honor to be present virtually at the IFAD Pavilion at COP26. I would like to express my deep appreciation to select Bangladesh to showcase its climate adaptation activities with this August gathering. The stories are phenomenal, I tell you. Bangladesh and IFAD enjoy a very special relationship for more than 40 years, being IFAD's one of the first partner countries. IFAD has been playing a key role in the transformation of our rural areas, investing in rural development, helping fight against poverty and food insecurity, and building resilience. Not only that, innovation has been key to IFAD's investments in Bangladesh. Today, Bangladesh is the largest portfolio of IFAD globally, and it is one of the best performing portfolios with best practices in a number of areas. For example, the climate adaptive approaches practicing through IFAD projects in our shore areas, river and islands, are one of the perfect examples of resilience building within the vulnerable communities. And you will listen to those success stories within a short while. You will know that Bangladesh is one of the world's most vulnerable countries due to climate change. Just 1 degree centigrade increase of global temperature and consequent sea level rise will result in inundation of a large area of Bangladesh and thus displacement of 40 million people by the end of this century. We rank 7 in the long-term climate risk index, CRI. In fighting climate change, Bangladesh has emerged as a global leader for the homegrown tools and strategies, including adaptation measures. Former UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, said that Bangladesh is the best teacher in climate change adaptation. The vibrancy and resilience of the people had always been an energetic force for the country to move on despite numerous odds. Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina, is currently the chair of the Climate Vulnerable Forum and would like to offer the interest of the climate vulnerable countries. This is a problem not for Bangladesh, for us all, particularly for the developing countries. So I would request all stakeholders, including development partners, private sectors, and civil society, among others, to come forward and to join hands to increase the climate finance for the developing countries. Thank you, IFAD, for your engagement at COP26. Let me assure you that Bangladesh remains visible with your noble journey by empowering people to adapt to climate change. I wish every success up to this program. Once again, thank you for inviting me for this very important event. Thank you.
And we thank you as well, Your Excellency. Thank you very much for your warm words there. So, as you've just heard there from His Excellency, there is a long-standing, successful collaboration between the government of Bangladesh and IFAD as well. The UN's International Fund for Agricultural Development works with some of the world's poorest rural farmers and producers who are really on the front line of climate change here. Every day, their lives are being affected and impacted by drought, by flooding, by storms in ways that we can't imagine. They are dealing with rising sea levels, which wash away crops in their villages, and they are fighting new pests and diseases as well. Now, over the next 10 days, we're going to have more than 30 events here at the IFAD Pavilion from COP26 that are going to be touching on various key topics. But today, we're going to be focusing on one very particular issue, which is climate finance as well. We're going to be hearing about some of the unique funds that IFAD has, which are specifically targeted at this area, and also how they are helping millions of people around the world as well. So let's get started with that without further ado. Now, I'm really, really excited to take you all on a virtual field trip, actually. We're going to be going to Bangladesh, obviously virtually, to two different projects in the northeast of Bangladesh, in the Sunamganj area, and then also to the southwest with the Shatkhira district as well, where we're going to be looking at two different projects, Hilip, Kalip, and Pace, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that as well. And just personally, I would like to say myself, I come from a British Bangladeshi background, so I know very much how much climate change is impacting people in Bangladesh. It is something that my family are very worried about for our own village, which is in the northeast. So seeing these sorts of projects take place, it really does touch my heart. It's a very personal issue as well. So we're going to be hearing live from farmers, from producers in both those areas. And also, this is an opportunity I'm extending to you all to ask your own questions as well. If you are joining us virtually, there is a Q&A box where you can leave your questions and we will be getting them to them. And also, if you are here as well in the IFAD Pavilion, you are able to through the Vvox app as well. So definitely ask your questions there as well. Now, we're going to be coming to them very shortly here at IFAD. But before that, I'm pleased to announce Donald Brown on the stage as well, Associate Vice President for IFAD's Program Management Department. Lovely to have you with us, Donald.
Thanks, Qasa, and thank you also to the Ambassador for Bangladesh for his opening remarks, and welcome to everyone who's joining us today. Like Qasa, I'm very pleased to be part of this virtual field visit to Bangladesh, where I spent also 3.5 very happy years. So the role of IFAD for COP26 is to shine a light on small-scale producers in the rural poor. And I'm pleased that today, through this virtual tour, we'll be able to do that on the ground. Because as we all know, that climate change is a risk multiplier, and particularly for the poorest. They are the ones most effective, and climate change has the power to derail much of the development progress, to increase vulnerabilities, and ultimately to exacerbate hunger and poverty. And while food production was written into the Paris Agreement, we've seen very little climate finance making its way to small producers. And we know that small producers in the rural poor bear the brunt of climate change. So it's really important, if we're to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, that we see much more climate finance going towards small producers. And as part of IFAD's mandate, IFAD's committed to working with the most rural and remote communities and those most affected by the impact of climate change. And to show our own commitment in our next funding cycle called IFAD 12, 40% of all our resources will be going towards climate change solutions. And that's equivalent to about $500 million US dollars. And so, as we'll see today, that will be drawing on our vast experience on looking at the most marginalized and looking at interventions that help to protect them from climate change. So thank you again for joining, and over to you, Qasa.
Donald, thank you so much. Definitely be asking you a few more questions as well throughout this virtual event. But yes, we're going on this virtual field tour, and we're going to be doing that very soon as well. Bangladesh is one of the most, in fact, I think it's in the top 10 of most affected countries by climate change. but it's also one of the places that IFAD funds in the Asia Pacific region as well. There are lots of projects there, so let's find out a little bit more about them right now.
Small-scale farmers produce up to 1/3 of the world's food, but every day they are battling to grow crops and earn a living due to the changing climate. In the Asia and Pacific region, they are at significant risk from increasing temperatures. Erratic rainfall,
যে ফসল এই হাওরের জমির ধান ফসল এগুলো আমরা অকাল বন্যাতে তলায় যাইতো
rising sea levels,
Dạ, khi mà nước mặn xâm nhập vào á, thì gây ảnh hưởng đến lúa. Có khi là lúa người dân vừa đang trổ hoặc là mới xạ như vậy bị ảnh hưởng chết cả nguyên đồng ruộng.
and extreme weather events.
Ang climate change nagkapektuhan ang pagkabuhi. Dako ang diferensya niya na ngayon una. Kay sugad tiana nga signal at bagyo.
But despite bearing the brunt of the impact of climate change, small-scale rural farmers are often overlooked, receiving only 1.7% of global climate finance. This is why the International Fund for Agricultural Development, or IFAD, a specialized UN agency dedicated to eradicating rural poverty, has committed to spend half of its climate finance budget on climate adaptation. It has also created a unique climate finance fund to help some of the world's poorest rural people. ASAP Plus aims to be the largest climate adaptation fund for small-scale farmers, which will channel $500 million in climate finance to increase the resilience and adaptability of these vulnerable communities, to ensure that rural farmers have all the tools and infrastructure they need to create profitable and sustainable livelihoods, so that despite the changing climate, they can grow.
So we're going to be learning a little bit more about those two IFAD-funded projects in a moment. But Donald, I'd like to ask you first of all, can you just tell us a little bit about how IFAD works in the country and the organizations it's trying to help in Bangladesh as well, the people that it's trying to help in Bangladesh?
Yeah, so thanks, Qasa. And as we'll see coming up, Bangladesh is one of the countries which is most vulnerable to climate change. And IFAD has a long history there. We've been there for over 40 years. And as the ambassador said, it's currently the home of our largest portfolio. So there's much good work we've done to date in Bangladesh and very much in partnership with the government of Bangladesh. And through the two IFAD projects that we're going to see today, one covering the Northeast and the other the South Coastal region, we've been working with government and other key partners to really ensure that the rural populations in these most vulnerable areas have the tools and infrastructure they need to survive and thrive. So, for example, despite the threat of cyclones, droughts and erosion, we've been doing work on climate-proofing infrastructure, on early warning systems, but also on giving them new crops, new varieties that will survive in these challenging conditions of climate change. But we should bear in mind that while watching these videos, progress is being made, the government of Bangladesh and the people of Bangladesh need much more financial and technical support if we're really able to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And successful projects like these really need to be scaled up. And that's why the discussions at COP26 are so important. And I am confident that if we all come together and do provide the finance necessary, we will be able to have a successful response to climate change in countries like Bangladesh.
Yeah, it's great to have that positivity and hope and optimism around this. Donald, thank you so much. So we've heard a lot, and we've even seen this video about how IFAD is engaged in building climate resilient communities, supporting the vulnerable in adapting to climate change. We're going to actually now have a chance to see how it works in the field as well, because this is all about virtual field trips. And I don't know about you, but I really do enjoy actually going out and seeing things and actually being there in the field trips as well. I mean, prime example of that for myself is when we went to Germany and when I was at school, we were going to all these museums. me and my friend decided rather than go to the museums, we would just sort of leave the bus entirely and go spend the whole day visiting the city. We didn't get in trouble because our answer was, well, we were experiencing the city, and they couldn't really argue with that. We were trying to live the history. So that is exactly what we're going to be doing right now, speaking to people right there and actually interacting with people who have been helped by these two IFAD-funded projects in Bangladesh and hear what it means to them as well. We're going to go visit the Hilip Kalip project in Sunamganj district in the northeast of Bangladesh, then travel to the other side of the country, the southwest coastal area, to interact with the PACE project participants in the Shatkhira district as well. Really looking forward to that. Let's invite Susan Beccio from IFAD now, who's going to be moderating the session with me, and he's going to introduce the first field site. Susan, lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Qasa. Hello, everyone joining us today. I'm Susan Beccio. I'm IFAD's Regional Communication Officer for Asia and Pacific. I'm joining you from IFAD headquarters in Rome. I've been working in communications with IFAD for almost 25 years, and I've had the opportunity to visit many development projects around the world. And I have even had the honor of accompanying the IFAD executive board to Bangladesh 4 years ago, and we actually visited the project we're about to see. It's a really interesting project and really amazing. Let's go to the map of Bangladesh, though I know we've seen an overview. There's one thing that I've learned over the years is that geographical location has implications on how people live and organize themselves, especially in rural areas. Anything, even, flooding can completely disrupt their livelihoods. The project areas of the Hilip Kalip project include 5 districts in the Hera region. And in this region is a seasonal wetland ecosystem, so extreme flooding, lots of water. There's 23 rivers draining into this area. The green mark on the map is the Sunamganj district, and that's one of the project locations that we'll visit. And I've actually been there. It's quite beautiful. The project has an infrastructure component and a climate component, and it's supported by the IFAD's Adaptation for Smallholder Agricultural Program, or ASAP. And we'll hear a little bit more about ASAP in a bit, but for now, let's go to the video.
Each year, monsoon rains flood Bangladesh's Haor region, a unique wetland ecosystem in the northeast of the country. For up to 6 months a year, the region is submerged under floodwater, forcing local people out of work and making it difficult for them to access food. Since 2012, the Haor Infrastructure and Livelihood Improvement Project, Climate Adaptation and Livelihood Protection, or the Hilip Kalip project, has been funded by IFAD, the Spanish Trust Fund, and the government of Bangladesh, and has been helping communities be better prepared for and resilient to climate change, directly benefiting over 1.5 million people.
যে ফসল এই হাওরের জমির ধান ফসল এইগুলো আমরা অকাল বন্যাতে তলায় যাইত, কিন্তু এইগুলা জমি কাইটিয়া আমরা রাখার মতো জায়গা ছিল না।
With combined effort of flash flood early warning system, submersible road and killa, now the loss due to the flash flood is less before previous situation.
As part of the project, climate resilient infrastructure linking villages to markets are also built, with more than 700 kilometers of submersible roads and 230 kilometers of barriers built against damaging wave action.
বিগত বছর রাস্তা অনেকটা কষ্ট আছেন, মানে আমাদের এলাকাবাসী খুব কষ্ট করছে, ধান তুলতে পারছে না। বর্তমানে অনেক উপকার হচ্ছে হেলিপ থেকে এই রাস্তা করার কারণে। আগে একটু বৃষ্টি হইলে ধান উড়াইতে পারতো না।
Floods also make it difficult to access clean water. By investing in tube wells and latrines, Hilip Kalip has also improved access to essential water and sanitation services.
দুইটা টিউবওয়েল দেওয়ার কারণে আমরা আর্সেনিক মুক্ত পানি খাইতে পারতাছি।
With the seasonal extremes, economic opportunities in the region are limited and unemployment is high. To support the diversification of economic activities and build resilience among the Haor communities, 78,000 people to date have been provided with training in farming and non-farming activities.
আমি 14 দিনের ট্রেনিং দিয়েছি হিলিপ প্রকল্প থেকে।
আমার 14 দিনের প্রশিক্ষণ দিছে আমার বালা ইনকাম আমার ছেলেরারে আমি বাইরে লেখাপড়া করতেছি ধন্যবাদ আমার এই পর্যায়ে নেওয়ার জন্য আমি এই কাজ শেখার জন্য আমি অনেক কিছু পাইছি
এই রাস্তা হওয়ার ফলে আমরা সহজেই স্বাস্থ্য সেবা পাচ্ছি যেমন আমরা সহজেই কমিউনিটি ক্লিনিকে যেতে পারছি এবং এই রাস্তার ফলে আরও উন্নয়ন হয়েছে যেমন আমাদের যোগাযোগ ব্যবস্থা অনেক উন্নয়ন হয়েছে এবং যোগাযোগ ব্যবস্থা উন্নয়নের ফলে আমাদের অনেক কর্মসংস্থান সৃষ্টি হয়েছে
Excellent. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's just an introduction, and in a minute we'll be going to meet some participants from the Hilip Kalip project live in Sumanganj district. So over to you, Qasa.
Susan, thank you very much there. One of the things that really stuck out to me there was the fact that 78,000 people have been in some way helped to try and actually get skills in farming and other ways as well. And we're now going to be speaking to 4 of those people from the Sunamganj district as well. And don't forget, you have an opportunity yourself, if you are joining us virtually, to put your questions to them as well using the Q&A box, and also if you are here as well using the VVox app as well. And we've definitely got space for your questions at the end. But yeah, let's go over right now to the Sunamganj district and meet our brilliant beneficiaries out there who are ready to speak to us. We're also joined by Nahia, who works for IFAD. It's going to be helping to interpret from Bengali to English for us. Good morning, or actually, should I say good afternoon to you. How are you doing, Nahia? Tell us who we've got there.
It's afternoon here, and thank you, Qasa. Good morning to all. My name is Nahia. I'm joining here on behalf of IFAD, and with me, I have the project director of Hilip Kalip, Mr. Gopal Chandra Sarkar. And we all are also joined by 4 project participants. We have Ms. Monoara, and on my left, I have Mr. Lalon and Mr. Anando. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much from that. Now, from the video, we have seen a little bit about the Haor Basin. Living there, whilst it looks really stark and challenging, especially during the rainy monsoon season as well. Now, Lalon, we saw you actually in that video, so I'd like to ask you a question. Do you see changes in the seasons, especially flooding patterns? How does the flooding affect your daily life as a farmer? How does it affect your community? Can you explain that to us?
লালন ভাই, আপনার কাছে প্রশ্ন জানতে চাচ্ছি, যেহেতু আমরা সবাই মাত্র ভিডিওতে দেখলাম হাওড় এলাকায় জীবনযাপন কেমন হতে পারে, কতটা কষ্টকর হতে পারে, উনি জানতে চাচ্ছেন যে বর্ষাকালে স্পেশালি যে আমাদের বন্যার যে পরিবর্তন কোনো হয়েছে কিনা আপনাদের এলাকায়, এবং একজন কৃষি কাজ করেন যিনি, তার সেই হিসেবে আপনার নিজের উপর প্রভাব কি এবং আপনার প্রতিবেশীর উপর প্রভাব কি এই পরিবর্তনের কারণে বন্যাকালের?
জি, আমি একজন কৃষক হিসেবে আমার এলাকায় বন্যা হয়ে প্রায় 5 থেকে 6 মাস রাস্তাঘাট পানির নিচে থাকে এবং এই পানির নিচে থাকার ফলে আমাদের যোগাযোগ ব্যবস্থা ব্যাপক ক্ষতি সাধন হয় এবং এই বন্যা হওয়ার ফলে আমার আয় রোজগার কমে যায় এবং আমরা বেকার হয়ে পড়ি এবং এই বন্যা হওয়ার ফলে আমরা বিশুদ্ধ পানির অভাবও আমাদের দেখা দেয় বন্যা হওয়ার ফলে। তারপর আমাদের অতিরিক্ত বন্যা হওয়ার ফলে আমাদের গবাদি পশুর খাদ্য সংকটে আমরা পড়ে যাই। এইভাবে এই পানির কারণে, এই বন্যা হওয়ার কারণে আমি এবং আমার প্রতিবেশী একই সমস্যায় ভুগতে হয়।
So what Lalong mentioned here is the kind of financial and daily life struggle that he and his larger community faces on a daily basis. The roads that are supposed to be accessible are actually submerged from 5 to 6 months throughout the year, and which actually disrupts their regular movement between cities and to pursue their other livelihood opportunities. And not only that, the children cannot go to school, people cannot access the basic necessities like healthcare, which is definitely a huge disruption in their personal and economic life, and they have suffered a great deal because of that due to the changing flooding patterns and the changing monsoon season in Bangladesh and in the Haor region. Thank you.
Lalon, thank you so much for explaining that to us. Ananda, I'd like to come to you now. For yourself, what's it like living in the Haor Basin during the monsoon? Can you just sort of tell us a little bit about day to day, what it is that you do and how difficult that becomes in the monsoon?
আনন্দদা, এখন আপনার কাছে জানতে চাচ্ছি, যেহেতু আপনি হাওড়ে এলাকায় অনেকদিন ধরে আছেন, যে আপনাদের জন্য প্রতিদিনের জীবনযাত্রা কেমন হয়? আপনারা কিভাবে জীবনযাপন করেন যখন এই ধরনের বন্যার কারণে প্রতিকূলতা তৈরি হয়?
আমরা হাওড় এলাকায় প্রচুর ঢেউ হওয়ার কারণে বন্যায় ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত করার পরে আমরা বাইরে যাইতে পারি না, হাওড় এলাকার নৌকা দিয়ে বাইরে যেতে পারি না, খামার কিছু করতে পারি না, তাই জন্য বাচ্চা নিয়ে সবাই নিয়ে আমরা ঘরে বসে থাকতে হয়, তাই জন্য আমরা কষ্ট ভোগ করতে হয়।
Ananda has a very simple and clear answer for that, which is that when the monsoon season is there and they are living in the Howrah Basin, they cannot even access the areas which is called the Howrah because they are landlocked by water from all sides. They have to spend days in uncertainty when they will be able to go out. That's a quite stressful time for him and his family and his wider community because they do not know when the situation of waterlogged and that struggle to pursue their daily necessities is gonna end after the season. Thank you.
Thank you. Just very quickly, just to add on to that, as you're so matter of fact with your answers, how do you protect yourself, I guess? How do you protect you, your family from all these events?
আনন্দদা, আমরা তো মাত্র শুনলাম যে আপনাদের কি কি কষ্টের সম্মুখীন হতে হয়, কিন্তু এই ধরনের সমস্যা যখন হয় আপনি বা আপনার পরিবার নিজেদেরকে রক্ষা করার জন্য কি ব্যবস্থা নিতেন, কি করতেন?
আগে আমাদের বাড়ির ভিতরে প্রায় 10 থেকে 15,000 টাকা খরচ হতো, বাঁশ সাইলে বন্ধে বাঁধে রাখা হতো, বাঁধে রাখার তো বন্যা কখন কি চলে আসবে বন্যা, তাই জন্য আমরা রাত জেগে ঘুমাইতে পারতাম না, রাত্র পাহারা দিতে হতো বাড়িঘর, তারপরও কষ্ট রক্ষা করতে গিয়া প্রচুর কষ্ট হতো আমাদের, তাই জন্য রাত্রে ঘুমাইতে গেলে ঘুম হয় নাই, কখন দিন চুরি যায় বানালে ভাঙি নেই বাড়িঘর, তাই জন্য আমরা খুবই কষ্টতে আসলাম।
Thank you, Ananda. For Ananda and his family, it actually has been a very difficult time because they didn't know when the flash floods are gonna come on, how to protect their own selves and their family and the livestock that they have. What they used to do for years and years is spend about $200 every month or the period of the time that they are trapped in the monsoon season to protect their homestead, and they used to do it through the chalna grass or bamboo sort of temporary arrangement because they didn't know how long those temporary arrangements are going to protect their homestead from being taken away by the increased wave action. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to spend each month just for basic protection. Thank you so much for explaining that. I'd like to ask Mr. Gopal a question now. I mean, you're the project director for Hilip Kalip. We've just heard how much money and how devastating the impacts of climate change and the monsoons are for the local community there. Can you briefly tell us in some of the other ways that it affects the community as well?
Good morning, Alom.
Morning.
Yes, as you see in the video that Howrah area, because of the critical location, this area remains underwater for 6-7 months in the monsoon. So in the monsoon, these villages looks like islands. So there is no communication system. It is seriously disrupted, and that's why there is a serious lack of access to the educational institutions, the healthcare facilities center, and market, and all other social institutions. And as this communication is disrupted, this results in the students cannot go to the school, the old people, women and children cannot go to the healthcare center, and this result in low literacy rate in the Howrah area, and also malnutrition and other health related problems in the Howrah area. As this area is underwater, so there is no employment facilities. So seriously, they are suffering due to the unemployment in the Howrah areas, and due to that reason, there is a serious problem in economic activities and resulting in a serious poverty, and they fall in debt situation. So these are the serious problems in the Howrah area. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Gopal. Let's just be really plain here. What is most needed, would you say?
It needs infrastructure development, like the construction of submersible road, the protection works to protect the homestead area, as Lalon mentioned, and also the raised platform like Killa construction is essential, and also the information, especially information related to the weather in the monsoon and also in the flood period, and also employment diversification. It may be on farm and also off farm employment. Off farm employment means the vocational training and other skill training. And especially in Bangladesh, the women are not that much empowered, and especially in our area, the situation is worsened. And because as the women are not engaged in direct income opportunities, so they are not empowered. Through this project, we create so many vocational training, skill training for the women's, like tailoring, dress making, blog boutiques, and parabet like Monwara. Through this training, they are now capable to inbound income opportunities, and now they are empowered too much.
Yeah, we'll be talking to Manwara in just a moment, actually. Looking forward to that. But I also want to ask you very quickly about the flash flood early warning system. That's something that you said we need more information quicker. Just tell us about that.
Thank you, Alom. This is a very important issue. As most of the people in our area are engaged in agriculture, especially in Buro rice cultivation. This crop is seriously damaged due to the early flash flood, because this area, our area, is surrounded by Indian hilly region, Meghalaya, Assam, and Tripura. And all on a sudden, this flash flood happens. And previously, there was no flash flood system in this area. With the help of IFAD and through the management of Kelly project, 4 agencies are engaged to develop the flash flood early warning system. One agency is responsible to provide all the weather data to 2 others agency, and that 2 others agencies with this calibrated data, they run the model with using separate software, and after successful running of the model, they transfer the this model to Bangladesh Water Development Board, a government-owned department, and they are
Brilliant.
responsible to forecast these.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Gopal. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, let's talk a little bit to Lalon a bit about that as well. I mean, on the ground for you, how does the early warning system help?
লালন ভাই, যেহেতু আপনারা এই আগাম বন্যা নিয়ে যে বার্তা ব্যবস্থা আছে আপনারা উপভোগ করেছেন, এটা আপনাকে কিভাবে সাহায্য করে?
আগাম বার্তা আমাদের দেওয়ার ফলে 10 থেকে 15 দিন আগে আগাম বার্তা দেওয়ার ফলে আমরা ফসলটা, আমাদের যে বুরু ফসল, আমরা সহজে কি আতা পাকা থাকতে এটা আমাদের ক্ষতিটা লাঘব করার জন্য, কিছু কমের জন্য আমরা এটা সহজেই বাড়িতে নিয়ে আসতে পারি, এবং আমাদের গবাদি পশুর খাওন আমরা মাঠ থেকে বাড়িতে তুলতে পারি। এবং এই আগাম বার্তা দেওয়ার ফলে আমরা আমাদের যে ভারীগুলো, আমাদের বাড়ির আঙ্গিনাগুলো বন্যার আগাম থেকে আমরা প্রস্তুতি নিতে পারি, যার ফলে আমাদের অনেকটাই ক্ষতি থেকে আমরা রক্ষা পাই।
কেমন ক্ষতি হতো
আগে আমাদের এই আগাম বার্তা না দেওয়ার ফলে আমাদের এই ফসলগুলা সবই তুলিয়ে নিয়ে যেত, কিছু আমরা মাঠ থেকে আমরা বাড়িতে তুলতে পারতাম না। আর্থিকভাবে আমরা আমার ব্যক্তিগত প্রায় 60 থেকে 70 হাজার টাকা আমার প্রতি বছরই এই আগাম বন্যা হওয়ার ফলে আমার ক্ষতি হয়।
ধন্যবাদ। For Lalon, they didn't have any early warning system prior to the one that Philip Calip introduced. After the introduction of the flash flood early warning system, now they get the warning message 10 to 15 days before, which allows them enough time and preparation so they can gather people to do early harvesting of crops, which would otherwise be completely lost. Even if it's not completely ripened, they would make the decision to reserve those crops earlier so that they can actually market and get a profit. But before the early warning system, they actually used to spend about 700 USD they actually had to lose 700 USD because there was no early warning system, and they could not even protect the food for their livestock or protect their homestead, which would also be lost in flash floods. And this is something Lalon added after I asked him how much would be the approximate monetary loss that they would incur before the early warning system. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of money lost there as well. It's just danger to life, but also financially as well. And this topic is all about climate finance. It's really important to see how it all links. Right, I want to talk a little bit about this submersible road now, which has been under construction through the Hilip Kalip project as well. Let's have a look at this road right now, because when I first heard about this right here, I really wasn't sure what to imagine. But Lalon, maybe you can explain a bit about this submersible road and how it impacts your daily life having something like this here.
ওনারা যেমন এই সাবমার্সিবল রোডটা কিন্তু আগে দেখেনি বা এটা সম্পর্কে জানতেন না, আপনি তো এটা ব্যবহার করছেন এবং আপনি আপনার আশেপাশের সবাই তো জানতে চাচ্ছেন ওনারা সবাই যে সাবমার্সিবল রোডের কারণে আপনার দৈনন্দিন জীবনে কি কোনো উপকার হয়েছে বা কিভাবে উপকার হলো?
জি জি, আমি একজন কৃষক হিসেবে এই সাবমার্সিবল রোডের মাধ্যমে আমার ব্যক্তিগতভাবে আমার অনেক উন্নয়ন হয়েছে এবং এর প্রভাব আমি প্রত্যক্ষভাবে এর সুবিধাভোগী। যেমন এই সাবমার্সিবল রোডের আগে আমার এলাকায় কোনো পাকা রাস্তা ছিল না, এবং এই রাস্তা হওয়ার ফলে আমি আমার ধান সহজেই অল্প খরচে বাড়িতে তুলতে পারছি, এবং এই বাড়িতে তোলার পরে আমি এর পর্যাপ্ত দাম পাচ্ছি। এবং এই রাস্তা হওয়ার ফলে আমি যেহেতু একজন কৃষক, আমি পাশাপাশি অন্য ফসলও করছি, যেমন টমেটো, মরিচ করছি, এগুলো আমি সহজে বাজারজাত করতে পারছি, এবং এই বাজারজাত করার ফলে আমার এই সহজে আমি এইগুলা দাম পাচ্ছি এবং আমি পারিবারিকভাবে এটা খুবই উপকৃত হচ্ছি। পাশাপাশি এই রাস্তা হওয়ার ফলে আমার এলাকায় অনেক প্রায় হাজার খানেক মানুষের কর্মসংস্থান সৃষ্টি হয়েছে। তারা মোটরসাইকেল, অটোরিকশা, ভ্যান এগুলা চালাচ্ছে, যা পূর্বে ছিল না। এই রাস্তা হওয়ার ফলে প্রত্যেকেই আমি এবং আমার এলাকার মানুষ সবাইকে সুবিধা পাচ্ছে।
ধন্যবাদ। Lalon actually brings together the whole picture of what the benefits are of the submersible road for himself and his wider community. For himself as a farmer, the benefits he gets is because, of course, it is related to the crops that he produces. He can bring them home early in a minimum cost and also store them as long as necessary to market them at a fair price. Earlier, which he used to lose because there was no submersible road before the one that Hilip Kalip made happen in this location. And not only him, his wider community has actually pursued other alternative livelihood opportunities because of this road. They now have started their own business through different vehicles to run a transportation business through which they are also earning enough money to have a good livelihood. And for Lalon himself, he has actually started to diversify his crop production by introducing early varieties of chili and other crops so that he can produce them throughout the year using the submersible road to actually harvest his crops and then also market them laterwards in a fair price. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, explaining all of that. Right, last but certainly not least, I really want to spend some time with you, Manwar, actually, because you shared a photo with us earlier. Please tell us a little bit about this photo, what you're doing in it.
মনোরাপা, এখন আপনার থেকে জানতে চাচ্ছে, আপনি আমাদের কাছে এই ছবিটা দিয়েছিলেন, এই ছবিতে আপনি কি করছেন?
আমি ছাগলের ভ্যাকসিন দিছি। আমি একজন প্যারামেডিক। আমি কৃষি বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় ময়মনসিংহ 15 দিনের ট্রেনিং দিছি। দেওয়ার পর আমি ভ্যাকসিন দেওয়া শুরু করেছি, হাঁস মুরগি ছাগল সবকিছু নিয়ে আর প্রাথমিক চিকিৎসা শুরু করে দিছি। এই প্রাথমিক চিকিৎসা শুরু করে আমার বাচ্চা কাচ্চারা লেখাপড়া করে বাহিরে লেখাপড়া করাইতেছি। পাশাপাশি আমার বাচ্চার বাবাও আমার প্র্যাকটিক্যালে শিখাইছি, মেম্বার হয়েছি, মানুষের পরিচিত হয়ে মেম্বার হয়েছি, আর বাড়িতে একটা বিল্ডিং দিছি। আর ভবিষ্যৎ পরিকল্পনা আমার ছেলেরা বাহিরে মানে ইন্ডিয়া বা এই যে কি তাকে কানাডা নাকি ইন্ডিয়া ইংলিশে লেখাপড়া করে কানাডা যাওয়ার উদ্দেশ্য আছে আমাদের পরিকল্পনা। আর আমিও আমাদের ইন্ডিয়ার সাথে সবসময় কথা বলি, আমি পরিকল্পনা আমারও ইন্ডিয়া যাওয়ার জন্য। আমার আবৃত্তি
আপনার এখন আয় কিরকম পরিবর্তন হলো?
আমার অনেক আয় পরিবর্তন হয়েছে। আমার এলাকারও অনেক দূর হয়েছে ভেটেনারি পানি সম্পদ অফিস 20 মাইল দূরে পড়াই
আপনার আয়ে কত পরিবর্তন আসলো
আমার
এখন আপনি
আমার আয় হন 30 থেকে 35,000 টাকা মাসে ইনকাম আর 4টা বিজনেস আছে এনআইটিভি সিল আমি
ধন্যবাদ মনোরাপা So Monora first, of course, pointed to the picture and then explained for us that she's actually vaccinating a goat there. And then I went back to Monora asking what her current profession is, what her financial situation looks like before and after HILIP. And Monora explained that she's a paravet after receiving a training from Bangladesh Agricultural University for 15 days, after which she has been engaged in livestock vaccination, primary healthcare, and regular treatment services within her locality. She also has started 4 individual businesses through that occupation, and she is now making close to 400 USD a month compared to the zero to no income that she used to have before. And seeing the success.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Right, let's have a couple of minutes then very quickly for some of the questions that you've all been sending in through the Q&A box. Susan, what have we got?
Thanks, Qasa. Okay, the first question that we have in our Q&A box is from one of the attendees of the session. Though it's anonymous, I can't say who it was. How do you prepare for an expected flood? I imagine one of the farmers will be able to answer this. What are the first things you do? Sort of first 3 steps when you know there's going to be a flood.
Maybe we can go to Ananda on that one now here.
আনন্দদা আপনার থেকে জানতে চাচ্ছি আর কি যখন আপনি ফ্ল্যাশ ফ্লাড আর্লি মর্নিং এ জানেন যে বন্যা হবে তখন আপনি কিভাবে প্রস্তুতি শুরু করেন প্রথমে কি করেন সবার আগে যখন জানেন বন্যা আসতেছে
বন্যা যখন আসছে তাই জন্য আমরা বন্যা তো আসার ক্ষেত্রে আমরা কি করব বন চাইলে বন্যা শুরু হয়ে যায় হাওড় দিতে পারি না বন্যা যখন ধৈর্য ধরে তার আমরা চাইলে বন্যা নিয়ে বাড়ি ঘর আগে বাঁধা রাখতাম তাই জন্য
প্রথম কাজ হয়
সবার আগে
Their first instinct is, of course, to protect their homestead, and they return early to their homes and take all necessary measures through the use of bamboo and the grass that he mentioned before to protect their homestead. That would be their first response.
Great, thank you for that. Susan, time for one more question, I think, before we move on. What have you got for us?
Okay, this is an interesting question. So do you think in the long term, the project will help young people to find jobs in the Hayward area and prevent families from having to migrate due to climate-related vulnerabilities? So something about, young people and jobs.
Great question. Nahia, over to you. Who do you want to ask that to? Maybe Mr. Gopal, I think. Or maybe Lalon.
মানে এখানে যদি এই প্রজেক্টের কারণে যুব সমাজ কি মনে হয় আরো বেশি সুবিধা পেতে পারবে প্রজেক্টে যা যা ইমপ্যাক্ট হয়েছে সেই কারণে এবং মানুষ হাওড় এলাকা ছেড়ে এলাকায় থাকতে আগ্রহী হবে কিনা প্রজেক্টের কন্ট্রিবিউশনের কারণে
Yes, it's a very important question. Our focus is mainly on the youth. Almost all the training participants are from youth. So before that, the youth were unemployed, and sometimes they migrate to other places for job opportunities. Now they are encouraged to stay in the Howrah area because they have now livelihood activities, and they know the agricultural crop diversification also. Now they adopted through this project. So now they are engaged in agriculture, the youth, and also in the off-farm activities.
Thank you so much for that. Do you know what? Such a quick answer. I think we've got time for one more question, actually, Susan. So make it a brilliant one. What else have you got?
It was just one more question that actually came to my mind because, here in Rome, when it rains really hard, sometimes we lose connectivity or electricity. So I was just wondering what happens in the Hayward region when there's a lot of rain, a lot of flooding. Do people lose electricity? Are they still connected? Are they able to access these messages, this SMS giving them early warning? I don't know, Mr. Bhopal or one of the participants could answer that one.
Yeah, maybe we can hear from Manwara again now here. What do you think?
Okay, Monorapa. এখানে যেহেতু অনেক বন্যা হয় এবং আগাম বন্যাও হয়, যখন বন্যা হয় তখন কি ইলেকট্রিসিটি থাকে না, আপনারা কি করেন? আপনাদের কাছে কি মেসেজ আসে, কোনো বার্তা ব্যবস্থা যেটা আছে আপনারা কি সবকিছুর সাথে যোগাযোগ রাখতে পারেন যদি ইলেকট্রিসিটি থাকে কি থাকে না, বা যোগাযোগ ব্যবস্থা কি অবস্থা হয় যখন বন্যা হয়?
ওই যে বার্তা যে দেয় এই ব্যাপারে আমরা মোবাইলে যোগাযোগ করি।
আর কারেন্ট কি থাকে তখন?
কারেন্ট থাকে না, কারেন্ট আমরা একটা কারেন্ট চার্জ দিয়ে রাখি, একটা কিতা জানি আনে বাজার থেকে না, এটা যে চার্জ করে রাখি বাদে আমরা ওই চার্জ দিই মোবাইলে দিয়ে, এটা দিয়ে আমরা বার্তাটা দেখি মোবাইলের মধ্যে।
So Monora actually brings to us a very realistic picture of what many people of Bangladesh go through, not just the Howrah region. So if there is electricity is also load shedding also very common, not just during the monsoon area, but in Howrah area, if that's the case, they have a portable light system which they charge beforehand. And then they use it for the period of load shedding, of course, not knowing when the electricity will be back, but they do have constant access to the flash flood early warning system and the messages. That's what they will rely upon about the warnings and to take preparation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of your time. Really, really great to speak to you all. And yeah, best of luck for the future as well. But I think right now it's time to move on, actually, because we've got another virtual field trip. We've got to make our way down to the south coast of Bangladesh very soon. So we're going to be doing that. But in the meantime, let's talk to Donald Brown again. What is needed, Donald, thank you, to support people like Manwara in building these climate resilient communities? Talk to me a little bit about the Adaptation for Smallholder Agriculture program, or ASAP, because this project, the amazing work that we've seen being done, is co-financed by that. So tell us a little bit about ASAP, first of all.
Thanks, Qasa. And I thought the interviews with those beneficiaries really brought it to the fore. So ASAP is the largest global climate adaptation program for small farmers. It's IFAD's flagship program, and it started in about 2012. And so far, we've raised about $370 million in contributions. Now, the kind of key question is what we've done with this. And globally, it's helped more than 7 million rural people to cope with climate change. It's restored over 2 million hectares of degraded land. And actually, it's also sequestered about 60 million megatons of carbon. So some pretty impressive results there. But key to success is the use of the ASAP funding within our much larger program of loans and grants, our much bigger investments. So as such, through ASAP, what it's been able to do is ensure that climate change adaptation is well integrated into our larger programs, using the innovative tools and technologies we've been able to pilot through ASAP. And these tools and technologies are helping smallholders to protect themselves against climate change. And I think we saw some really good examples in the video and from the beneficiaries, such as the early warning system, such as the climate proofing of infrastructure, such as the submersible roads. So that's the sort of benefits that we can see. The real challenge is scaling that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about ASAP in the Asia Pacific region, which is where Bangladesh is. What have the results there been like?
So in Asia Pacific, we really targeted three main distinct ecosystems: the Hora Basin, which you saw in that video, the Hindu Kush area, and also the Lower Mekong. These are three major hotspots for climate hazards in the Asia Pacific region, where people are dependent on farming for their livelihoods and are most affected by climate change. The real issue here, though, is each region has very specific problems and very specific challenges. So there's no one size fits all. So we do a lot of detailed climatic analysis before we intervene in these areas. And in fact, yesterday, I think, or even today, we've just launched a paper which gives some of the lessons that we've had from our work in the Asia Pacific region as ASAP. And one key message is that smallholder farmers often have the local knowledge that's so important, as we saw from those beneficiaries. And so they can quickly grasp these innovations, adapt them for their own environments, and have a positive impact. We also found, interestingly, that successful innovations are not just restricted to the project area, but many farmers take the relevant adaptation technologies and adopt them themselves. So just one brief example, in Vietnam, we tested about 130 climate resilient farm innovations, such things as micro irrigation, use of what we call blue-clawed prawns, who are very tolerant to salt intrusion in rice paddies, but also salt-tolerant rice varieties. And 52,000 households adopted these. But more interesting in some ways, another 4,000 households that were not part of the project also adopted them. And they saw an increase in their incomes of about 10%, as well as an increase in the production of their crops by about 10%. So it shows the impact you can have there, not just on the direct beneficiaries, but on the adaptation and the adoption to a wider audience.
Absolutely, that domino effect as well, and hopefully that it just sort of leads to more and more, which is brilliant. One last question for you here, Donald. We hear that finance for adaptation needs of developing countries is still far outstripped by financing for mitigation, about $1 for every $18. Be very, very simple with us here. You know, what are the implications for people like Lalon and Ananda, whom we met in the field for this?
So really simply, and I think it's so important at this COP, is we've got to focus the discussion not only on mitigation, but on adaptation. The latest IPCC report states that the impacts of climate change are irreversible now. So climate change is here. We've seen how it affects the people on the ground in that video. So it's not anymore about mitigation. It's also about addressing the harsh impacts of climate change, particularly on the poorest and most vulnerable, who have really limited capacity to adapt. So as you say, we've got to get the funding down into adaptations of the poorest communities. And for me, the really, really stark figure, you know, is that in 2017, 2018, this group received 1.7% only of global climate finance.
Yeah, really stark indeed, and it's important to have that attitude shift clearly. Donald, thank you so much for this discussion on the ASAP Fund. Let's go to our next field trip then. We're going to Shamnagar in the Shatkira area. Susan, tell us a little bit about this place.
Okay, thank you, Qasa. In fact, we're talking about adaptation, and you know, climate change is here, so farmers and rural communities need to know what they can do now. You know, climate change is a multidimensional problem, and it links people and their environment in a variety of ways. We'll go to this village in Satakira, and it's famous for the Sundarbans, which are the largest deltaic mangrove forest in the world. So a mangrove forest helps protect coastal areas from erosion. It's like a green infrastructure, right? It's a buffer. They're a buffer against the worst impacts of tidal surges and large waves that would otherwise destroy the coastline. But the mangrove, you know, is also, it's under a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of resource depletion because local communities use the mangroves to extract wood, fish, and generally daily practices could be detrimental to environmental conservation. There's also saltwater encroachment. So as the mangroves are depleted, then saltwater encroaches the coastline. So we're going to visit the PACE project, and it's actually contributing to the protection of the Sundarbans, and it's supporting rural communities in the coastal region to also be able to earn a living. So being able to earn a living without harming the environment. So let's go to the video.
Smallholder farmers in Bangladesh are particularly vulnerable to climate change impacts. That's why, together with Pulli Kormo Shohayak Foundation, PKSF, IFAD is supporting and strengthening smallholders' climate adaptation efforts with the Promoting Agricultural Commercialization and Enterprises Project, or PACE. The project provides critical services for farmers and rural micro-entrepreneurs, reaching out to nearly 3.4 million people and delivering access to finance, new technologies for climate-resilient farming, and developing value chains to increase participation in markets. PACE has also introduced high-value exotic fruits like pineapples and dragon fruit, processing technologies like fish dryers and compost-making technology to improve agricultural production. Crab farming is another interesting and successful intervention. While crab culture is traditionally been practiced in the coastal Satkhira district, it has depended heavily on the capture of crabs from the Sundarban mangrove forests. This damages the delicate ecosystems of mangrove forests, which are hotspots for biodiversity and serve as vital natural barriers protecting coastlines against storms. Crab growing techniques were also not refined enough to produce for exports.
কাঁকড়া চাষের শুরুতে আমি জানতে পারলাম যে কাঁকড়ার বিভিন্ন সমস্যা কিন্তু সমাধান করার কোনো পথ খুঁজে পাই না।
Supported by expertise from a Vietnamese development organization, PACE set up the first ever crab hatchery in Bangladesh's Satkhira district to address some of these roadblocks. Crab farmers are now more skilled and the output of crab culture has significantly improved.
Now they collect crablet from crab hatchery and they have not to go to Sundarban. Sundarban's ecological balance is intact. The small household crab hatchery also provided to them. This is the climate smart technology.
PKSF এবং IFAD অর্থায়ন করে থাকে। এই আর্থিক সহযোগিতা এবং কারিগরি সহযোগিতা পেয়ে আমি কাঁকড়া চাষে বর্তমান খুবই একজন সফল কাঁকড়া চাষী।
All around the world, IFAD collaborates with local partners like PKSF to support communities in adapting to the changing climate and to promote inclusive and sustainable rural development, leaving no one behind.
Excellent, really interesting video. I love the part where they're tickling the crabs. Now we'd like to go and actually meet some of the PACE project participants live from Satkhira district. Qasa, over to you.
Yeah. Susan, thank you for that. Yeah, let's see if we can get some crab tickling from our participants here as well, some of the beneficiaries when we go speak to them. Yeah, as mentioned in the video, many activities aimed at improving livelihoods, sources for smallholder farmers, fisherfolk in the region as well. PKSF's introduced a crab hatchery, and let's go meet some of those specialists now as well. And again, just like we did with the first field trip, if you have any questions, if you're with us virtually, please put them into us in the Q&A box, and also here as well at the IFAD Pavilion using the VBox app as well. So let's speak to Nabil, who also works for IFAD, supporting us to exchange with the project participants and interpret as well for us. Nabil, everyone, thank you so much for your time. Welcome. Afternoon. So Nabil, who is with you there?
Hi, Qasa. Welcome to a bright, sunny afternoon in the Satkhira district. So where we have some amazing stories to hear in the next few minutes. But before going forward, let me introduce who we have with us today. So on my right, we have Mr. Nazrul Islam, who is the crab value chain specialist for the PACE project. Then we have Ms. Kakuli Rani Aulia, who is a crab farmer. On my left, we have Ms. Madhabi Rani Mondal and Mr. Masum Billah, who are also crab farmers. So over to you, Qasa.
Yeah, brilliant to have all them there. And I think I see some crabs behind you. We're definitely going to have to get them out at some point. But my first question, I suppose, is to you, Masum. Tell us a little bit about when and why you got into crab farming.
মাসুম ভাই, প্রথম প্রশ্নটা ওনারা আপনার কাছে করতে চাচ্ছেন যে আপনি কখন এবং কিভাবে কাঁকড়া চাষের সাথে সম্পৃক্ত হলেন?
যে আমি আগে চিংড়ি চাষ করতাম এবং পাশাপাশি সবজির কৃষি কাজে নিয়োজিত ছিলাম। তো বিগত কয়েক বছরে আমাদের এলাকাতে জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের কারণে এলাকার মাটি ও পানির লবণাক্ততা আগের ছাড়া অনেক বেশি বৃদ্ধি পেয়েছে, যার কারণে আগে আমরা যে সকল চাষাবাদ করতাম ধান, গম, ভুট্টা, বর্তমান লবণাক্ততা বাড়ার কারণে এই ধরনের চাষ সম্ভব না। পাশাপাশি চিংড়ি চাষে আমাদের লবণাক্ততা বৃদ্ধির কারণে একটা বাধা আছে। আর দ্বিতীয়ত চিংড়ি চাষের জন্য বিভিন্ন বছরের বিভিন্ন সময় চিংড়িতে নানান ধরনের ভাইরাস প্রভাবিত করে, যার কারণে আগের ছাড়া উৎপাদনটাও বর্তমানে অনেক কমে গেছে। তো বর্তমানে আমরা চিংড়ি কিংবা কৃষিকাজের পাশাপাশি একটা বিকল্প কর্মসংস্থান কিংবা একটা বিকল্প আয়ের উৎস খুঁজতেছিলাম। তো এমন অবস্থায় পেস প্রজেক্টের একজন কর্মকর্তা, মাঠ পর্যায়ের কর্মকর্তা ভাইয়ের সাথে আমার কথা হলো এবং তার মাধ্যম দিয়ে জানতে পারলাম যে কাঁকড়া চাষ অধিক লবণাক্ততার ভিতরেও কাঁকড়া চাষ করা যায়। তো এবং কম জায়গায় অল্প সময়ে অধিক লাভবান হওয়া যায়। তখন থেকে আমি কাঁকড়া চাষ করার জন্য পরিকল্পনা গ্রহণ করলাম এবং নববিকি গণমুখী ফাউন্ডেশন
Thank you very much for that. Nabil, do you mind translating a little bit of what's been saying?
Interpret what Mr. Masoom was saying, that he used to be a shrimp farmer earlier and also used to grow other crops like rice and maize and others. But due to the increase in the salinity level in the water and in the soil, he saw drastic decrease in the outputs, and he was then looking for an alternate option to replace his livelihood. And also what he mentioned is that due to extreme climate events like storm surge and cyclones, the shrimp farms often used to get destroyed. So that is when he got introduced to the PACE project, and he met a field officer who introduced him to the crab farming. And he mentioned that crab farming requires less amount of land and it is more profitable. So that is when he got involved with this project, and with the support from PACE project, he's been able to convert his livelihood from shrimp to crabs. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for explaining that as well. Nazrul, so you are the crab value chain specialist of the project. Can you tell us a little bit more about the crab hatchery then? What exactly are you doing there? How difficult was it to set up? I saw in the video that you brought some specialists from Vietnam and also to help give some advice. Just tell us a little bit about all of this.
নজরুল ভাই, উনি জানতে চাচ্ছেন যে আপনি তো ক্র্যাব ভ্যালু চেইন স্পেশালিস্ট হিসেবে কাজ করছেন, তো ক্র্যাব হ্যাচারিতে আপনারা আইডিয়ালি কি করে থাকেন এবং এই ক্র্যাব হ্যাচারিটা প্রতিষ্ঠা করতে গিয়ে আপনারা কি কি ধরনের প্রতিবন্ধকতার সম্মুখীন হয়েছিলেন?
থ্যাংক ইউ। পিকেএসএফ এবং এনজিএফ এর পক্ষ থেকে সবাইকে শুভেচ্ছা। আসলে বেসিক্যালি এই হ্যাচারিতে আমরা কাঁকড়ার পোনা তৈরি করি এবং এই পোনাটা তৈরি করার জন্য যে ধরনের প্রসিডিউর মেনটেন করতে হয় সেগুলি আমরা এখানে করে থাকি। চিংড়ি যদিও একটি চিংড়ির থেকে কাঁকড়া আরো বেশি হার্ডি, যদিও এটা মানে হার্ডি, কিন্তু হ্যাচারির ক্ষেত্রে চিংড়ির থেকে কাঁকড়াটা আরো একটু বেশি প্রিকশন বা বিভিন্ন ধরনের প্যারামিটার মেনটেন করতে হয়। এবং এই কাঁকড়ার হ্যাচারিটা যেখানে আমরা আজকে বসে আছি, এটা হলো বাংলাদেশের প্রথম কাঁকড়ার হ্যাচারি। এই হ্যাচারি টেকনোলজি আমরা ভিয়েতনাম থেকে সংগ্রহ করি। সেখানে আমরা যাই, সেখান থেকেও আমাদের এখানে লোক আসে, আমাদের প্রশিক্ষণ করায়, আমরাও সেখানে গিয়ে প্রশিক্ষণ নেই। এভাবে আমরা এই হ্যাচারিটা সেট আপ করি এবং এই হ্যাচারি সেট আপ করার পরের থেকে এখানে আমরা যে কাঁকড়ার পোনা তৈরি করি, এই পোনাটা আশেপাশে যারা
Thank you for that. Nabil, do you mind telling us what's being said?
Yeah, so what Nazrul mentioned is that they produce the crablets in this hatchery, and which is then bought by the nearby crab farmers. And as we all saw in the video, that this crab hatchery was established with the support and technology transfer from Vietnam. This is the first ever crab hatchery in Bangladesh, and initially they faced some difficulties, but due to the trainings and support they received from the Vietnamese development organization, they have overcome those difficulties, and now they're overseeing a very smooth operation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Nabil. I can see some of the crabs actually writhing around in the boxes behind you, so I'd love to see if we can get some of them out. Kakuli, do you mind showing us some of your crabs actually, and just telling us a little bit about how long you have been involved in this project?
কাকলি, ওনারা একটু আপনাকে অনুরোধ করেছে আপনি যদি এখান থেকে একটু আমাদেরকে দেখান যে আপনি কিভাবে কাঁকড়া চাষ করেন এবং কাঁকড়া কিভাবে এখানে উৎপন্ন হয়।
যেহেতু আপনারা এই যে র্যাকগুলো দেখতে পাচ্ছেন, এটা র্যাকের কাঁকড়া চাষ।
So how long have you been doing this for, Kakuli? How long have you been a crab farmer?
কতদিন যাবত কাঁকড়া চাষ করছেন এটা একটু বলুন।
আমি 2016 সাল থেকে এই কাঁকড়া চাষটা শুরু করি। তো আপনারা যেটা দেখতে পাচ্ছেন এটা 1 থেকে 150 গ্রাম কাঁকড়া, এটার বয়স 3 মাস হয়েছে। এটা এখন বিক্রি করার উপযোগী হয়েছে। তো এই র্যাক চাষটা প্রথমত আমরা এই র্যাকগুলো আছে এতে কারো বয়স আছে 1 মাস, 1.5 মাস কি 3 মাস। তো র্যাকের আমরা প্রথমত মনে করি যে র্যাকের চাষটা খুব ভালো চাষ, কারণ এটি
So what was that, Nabil? What was being said there?
So what she mentioned is that she's been involved with crab farming since 2016. And as you can see that in these racks, we have crabs placed in each boxes. So it is very easier to maintain and take proper care and ensure that the crabs are getting the right amount of feed and their healths are being taken care of. In her hand, she has a mature crab, which is ready to be sold now, 3 months of age. But we also have different other size of crabs here, which are 1 month, 2 month, and even 15, 20 days old.
Can we get a bit closer to the crabs, perhaps with the camera, maybe?
Yeah,
that'd be brilliant. So Kakuli, do you mind telling us a little bit about some of the steps involved in crab farming then? I mean, how often, what do you have to do on a day-to-day schedule to ensure that the crabs are healthy and growing?
ওনারা জানতে চাচ্ছেন যে আপনি দৈনন্দিন কিভাবে কাঁকড়ার মানে মানে পর্যবেক্ষণ করেন বা কাঁকড়া চাষটা কিভাবে করেন আপনি ডে টু ডে?
প্রথমে তো আমি এই যে পেস প্রকল্প থেকে একটা মানে পিকেএসএফ এর কারিগরি সহযোগিতায় এবং ইফাদের অর্থায়নে আমাদের কলবাড়িতে একটা হ্যাচারি স্থাপন করেছেন। আমরা এখন সেখান থেকে পোনা পাই এবং বাড়ি নিয়ে নার্সিং করে যখন আমাদের চাষের উপযোগী হয় তখন আমরা চাষ করি। প্রথমত বক্সে চাষ করি। প্রথম প্রায় বক্সে সব কয়টা বক্সে কাঁকড়া আছে। তো এই কাঁকড়াগুলো আমরা এই কাঁকড়া র্যাকেট চাষ করতে যে মানে একই পানিতে বারবার এই চাষটা করা যায় এবং নিয়মিত খাদ্য দিতে পারি, ভালোভাবে দেখাশোনা করতে পারি। এতে জীবাণু কম আছে, কারণ পুকুরে চাষ করতে যে 10টা কাঁকড়া ছাড়লে তারা খাদ্যর অভাবে হয়তো মারামারি করতে যে মারাও যায়। তো এতে হ্যাঁ,
what was that, Nabil?
So what she was mentioning is first they collect the crablets from the hatchery and they nurse it in their house before placing them into the individual boxes. So when they place them in the boxes, then on the daily basis, they provide food as per the prescription and the technical skills knowledge they have received from the project. And they also observe the overall health condition and how the growth is happening for the crabs. The other thing she mentioned is in earlier cases when she used to farm the crabs in a pond, they used to fight for the food. So and they used to cannibalize each other. But now in these boxes, since they are individually placed and fed, the cannibalization is eliminated and they get almost 100% of the crablets into full-grown crabs.
I see. So it's improved productivity in that way as well. Madabi, I understand that you were a crab farmer even before the PACE project as well. So I'm really interested in knowing from you, how has crab farming changed for you because of the PACE project? What do you do now that you didn't do before? Or even what have you stopped doing now to help you more going forward?
মাধবী, ওনারা আপনার কাছে জানতে চাচ্ছে যে আপনি তো এই পেস প্রকল্পের সাথে যুক্ত হওয়ার আগেও কাঁকড়া চাষের সাথে যুক্ত ছিলেন, তখনের চেয়ে এখন কি কি পরিবর্তন হয়েছে বা এই প্রজেক্টের সাথে যুক্ত হওয়ার কারণে আপনি কি কি ধরনের সুবিধা পাচ্ছেন যেটা আপনি আগে পেতেন না?
আমি যখন থেকে পেস প্রজেক্টের সাথে যুক্ত হয়েছি, এর আগে থেকে আমি কাঁকড়া চাষ করতাম। সেক্ষেত্রে আমার মানে খুব একটা সমস্যার ভিতরে কাঁকড়া চাষটা করতে হতো। সুন্দরবন থেকে, সুন্দরবনের আশেপাশে যে নদী ও খাল আছে ওখান থেকে আমাকে কাঁকড়া সংগ্রহ করতে হতো। সেক্ষেত্রে অনেকটা ঝুঁকি ছিল, সাপের ভয় ছিল, বাঘের ভয় ছিল, জলদস্যুর আক্রমণের শিকার হতে হতো। সরকারি বিধিনিষেধ থাকার কারণে মানে আমার প্রয়োজন মতো আমি কাঁকড়াটা পেতাম না। তখন থেকে কাঁকড়া চাষের যে সমস্যাটায় ভুগছিলাম, আমি পরে মানে আমার প্রতিবেশীর মাধ্যমে জানতে পারি যে নবেকি গণমুখী ফাউন্ডেশনের আওতায় পিকেএসএফ ইফাদের সহায়তায় কলবাড়ি একটা কাঁকড়ার হেচারি স্থাপন হয়েছে। সেখানে কম দামে এবং জীবাণুমুক্ত কাঁকড়ার পোনাটা পাওয়া যায়। আমি ওখান থেকে পেস প্রকল্পের সাথে যে কর্মকর্তারা আছে ওনাদের সাথে আমি যোগাযোগ করে ওখানে সদস্য হিসেবে যুক্ত হয়ে ওখান থেকে পোনাটা সংগ্রহ করে কাঁকড়া চাষটা শুরু করি।
আর এখন কি আপনার আগে যতটা মানে কাঁকড়া আপনার থাকতো?
Sorry, Nabil, do you mind explaining to us what was said first before
just let
going
me
ahead?
collect the last piece of information.
Oh, sure thing. Thank you.
কাঁকড়া অত আর মারা যাচ্ছে না, না?
না। হ্যাঁ, এখন কাঁকড়ার এই পেজ প্রজেক্টের সাথে যুক্ত হয়ে এখান থেকে যে কাঁকড়ার পোনাটা আমি গ্রহণ করছি, মানে যেটা নিয়ে যাচ্ছি, হ্যাঁ, সেটা জীবাণুমুক্ত, সেটা জীবাণুমুক্ত, মানে মৃত্যু হারটা কমেছে আর আমি মানে লাভটাও আমার বেশি আসছে।
আমি একটু ওনাদেরকে তাহলে বুঝি। So what she mentioned is that before being involved with the PACE project, she used to be a crab farmer, but at that time she used to face a number of difficulties. The first one is she had to collect the crablets from the deep canals and rivers of inside the Sundarban. So she had a number of risks associated with it. For example, there was risk of being attacked by wild animals, being attacked by the pirates, and there's always a strict restriction being imposed by the government to enter the forest. But now she, after being involved with this project, she got to know about the crab hatchery, and now she mentioned that she can easily collect the crablets from the crab hatchery, which is also cheaper compared to the efforts she had to put to collect them from the forest. And also she mentioned is that the crablets are of very good quality, so the mortality has drastically decreased, and she gets almost 100% of the crablets grown up to to be sold stage. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. Madabi, I think there's a picture we've got right now, I believe, where we can see we can see the markets where you sell the crabs, right? Yeah, so this is where they are being sold. Just tell us a little bit about the crab markets and how does it work financially? Is it better now after the PACE project?
আপনি তো ছবিতে দেখতে পাচ্ছেন যে আমাদের একটা কাঁকড়ার বাজার দেখানো হচ্ছে। উনি একটু জানতে চাচ্ছেন যে বাজারে কিভাবে আপনারা কাঁকড়াটা বিক্রয় করেন এবং এখন কি আগের চেয়ে বেশি লাভ করতে পারেন কিনা?
হ্যাঁ, আগে তো আমরা কাঁকড়ার সঠিক দামটা জানতাম না। যখন থেকে আমরা ডিপোগুলোর সাথে আমাদের যোগাযোগটা ভালো হয়েছে, সেখান থেকে আমরা প্রতিদিন যে কাঁকড়ার দরটাও জানতে পারি এবং সঠিক দামটাও পাই। আগের তুলনায় এখন লাভটা বেশি পাচ্ছে।
আর এখন এই মানে কাঁকড়া এইভাবে আধুনিকভাবে চাষ করার কারণে আপনি বছরে কয় ব্যাচ কাঁকড়া?
বছরে আমি 6 বার কাঁকড়ার,
কতগুলা ব্যাচ?
আগে 2 থেকে 3 বার করে আমার বছরটা শেষ হয়ে যেত, কিন্তু এখন আমি 6 বার কাঁকড়ার চাষ করি। 1,60,000 1,60,000, হ্যাঁ, বছরে প্রায় আমার লাভ চলে আসে 1,60,000 টাকা।
আমি তাহলে একটু ওনাদেরকে বুঝিয়ে দিই। What she mentioned is that through this project, they got connected to the crab traders who have their trading houses in the local market. So every morning they receive the updated price according to the crab grades. And based on the price and the demand they receive from the traders, they then take their crabs to the selling point and sell the crabs to the traders. She also highlighted that due to this modern technique of crab farming she learned from the project, she can now have up to 6 batches of crab production every year, which used to be maximum 2 to 3 previously. And she earns as much as almost $2,000 of a profit every year, which was not as much as it is now when she was farming on her own. Thank you, Qasa.
Yeah, thank you for just putting it plainly as well. I mean, more rounds selling, also more productivity, less mortality, and more profit, which is brilliant. Where are these crabs going? I suppose, Nazrul, I'd like to ask you, where are these crabs being sold to? Because I understand crab really isn't eaten that much in Bangladesh, is it?
নজরুল ভাই, উনি জানতে চাচ্ছেন যে ক্র্যাবটা কোথায় বিক্রি হয়, কারণ ওনার জানা মতে বাংলাদেশে তো আসলে ক্র্যাবের অতটা ডিমান্ড নাই।
মেইনলি কাঁকড়াগুলো আমাদের বিদেশেই চলে যায়, বাইরের দেশেই যায়। দেশে 3% কাঁকড়া বিক্রি হয় এবং এইটা আসলে দিন দিন আমাদের দেশে এই কাঁকড়া বিক্রির পরিমাণটা বাড়তেছে। মানুষ সফট শেল ফ্রাই করে খাচ্ছে, বিভিন্ন রেস্টুরেন্টেও এগুলো পাওয়া যাচ্ছে। তো মেইনলি আমাদের কাঁকড়া বিক্রির মার্কেট হলো বিদেশে, বিশেষ করে চায়না, সিঙ্গাপুর, তাইওয়ান, অস্ট্রেলিয়া, ইউরোপ, এই সমস্ত দেশেই কাঁকড়া।
তাহলে ধন্যবাদ। So what Mr. Nazrul mentioned is that the crab is mostly an export-based product. So 97% of the overall crab grown in this country are exported to various markets, including China, Singapore, Taiwan, and even in Europe. But however, they are seeing a an increasing trend in the local demand. So that is why it has grown up to 3% as of now from the local demand. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hopefully in the future we will know Bangladesh will be synonymous with crab farming. Right. Thank you very much for all those. Susan, do we have any questions from the audience now as well, perhaps?
Thank you, Qasa. Yes, we do. But first, I would like to go to Mr. Manish Mitra. He's an economic counselor and alternate perm rep of Bangladesh, based here in Rome. So he interfaces with IFAD quite often, and he's joined us today in the studio. So if we could bring him up on screen, I think he has a question for us. Mr. Mitra?
Yes, I'm here.
There you are.
Thank you,
Shoot
Susan.
away.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Qasa. It's quite interesting to listen all the success stories of my country from here in Rome. Just to make it short, I would like to ask the questions to all my beneficiaries, and also I'd like to take the privilege to ask the question in Bangla, if you allow. আমি আপনাদের কাছ থেকে একটু শুনতে চাই যে চিংড়ি চাষ এবং কাঁকড়া চাষ আপনারা যদি বলেন কেউ একজন যে কোনটা বেশি লাভজনক মানে আপনাদের জন্য so I'm asking the questions whether the crab farming versus the our shrimp farming, which one is profitable for them?
কাকলি আপনি বলেন কাঁকড়া আর চিংড়ি চাষের মধ্যে কোনটা বেশি লাভজনক আপনাদের জন্য?
যেহেতু আমরা উপকূলীয় অঞ্চলে বাস করি, এখানে আমাদের ঘূর্ণিঝড়, জলোচ্ছ্বাস এবং নদী ভাঙনের সম্মুখীন হতে হয়। তো জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের ফলে আমাদের এলাকায় মাটি ও পানিতে লবণাক্ততা বেড়ে যায়। লবণাক্ততা বেড়ে যাওয়ার ফলে চিংড়ি চাষটা খুব একটা ভালো হয় না। তো তার মধ্যে সবচেয়ে ভালো হয় কাঁকড়া চাষ, কারণ কাঁকড়া চাষটা অল্প সময়ে অল্প জায়গায় চাষ করা সম্ভব এবং বিদেশি রপ্তানি হওয়ার ফলে আমরা দামটাও ভালো পাই। তো এই কাঁকড়া চাষটাই বেশি লাভজনক এবং মানে ঘরের মধ্যে রেখে করে কাঁকড়া চাষটাও করা যায় খুব সহজে, একই পানিতে বারবার করা যায়।
So what Ms. Kakoli mentioned is that between shrimp and crab, they find crab farming more profitable. The reason behind this is shrimp farming requires to be done in the open ponds, and due to the climate change, now they're facing an increased number of cyclone and storm surge. And also due to the increase in salinity, they are not, the shrimp farms are often getting destroyed, and due to the salinity increase, the output of the shrimp farm has also drastically reduced. On the other hand, crab farming can be done in these racks in a very small amount of space, even within their house. And since the crab is mostly focused on the export market, they get a better price. So overall, the crab farming is more profitable to them.
Great question there. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, thank you very much there. And do you have any other questions for us?
Actually, not the question, but I would like to request IFAD at this very good occasion to take the initiative to increase this kind of export-led investment to Bangladesh. That will help the community to connect them with the world market. I think that is very important, and that is one of the tasks I am carrying on here in Rome as economic counselor. So I'd be very happy to link them with the European market to standardize the product and how to help them in this regard. Thank you so much for giving me the floor. Back to you.
Thank you very much as well. And yeah, if that is opening up pathways, that is brilliant as well. Any other questions, Susan?
Thank you, Qasa. Thank you, Mr. Mitra. That was an excellent intervention. We do have another question in the chat that sort of follows on this question. How many people are covered under this alternate livelihood initiative at the catchment area? And what are the plans of scaling it up? Are there more hatcheries planned so that more people in the community can participate?
নজরুল ভাই, আমার মনে হয় এই প্রশ্নটা আপনার জন্য বেশি অ্যাপ্রোপ্রিয়েট হবে। ওনারা জানতে চাচ্ছেন যে এখন এই প্রকল্পের আওতায় এই এলাকায় মোট কতজন কাঁকড়া চাষের সাথে সম্পৃক্ত আছেন এবং ভবিষ্যতে কাঁকড়া চাষের এই পরিধিটা আরো স্কেল আপ করার কোনো পরিকল্পনা আছে কিনা বা সুযোগ আছে কিনা?
ধন্যবাদ। আমরা মূলত কোস্টাল এরিয়াতে 5টা জেলাতে কাজ করি, সেটা হচ্ছে সাতক্ষীরা, খুলনা, বাগেরহাট, ভোলা এবং কক্সবাজার। এইখানে আমাদের 52,000 সদস্য আছে যারা কাঁকড়া চাষের সাথে জড়িত। আমরা তাদেরকে নিয়ে বিভিন্ন রকম টেকনোলজিক্যাল সাপোর্ট, মার্কেটিং এর সাপোর্ট, প্রোডাক্ট ট্রান্সফার মানে ব্রিডিং এর সাপোর্ট, প্রোডাকশনের সাপোর্ট, এই ধরনের আমরা তাদেরকে স্কিল ডেভেলপমেন্ট করি। পাশাপাশি আমরা এই হ্যাচারি, আমাদের এখানে যে একটা হ্যাচারি আছে, আমরা এই পর্যন্ত আমাদের প্রকল্পের আওতায় আরো 3টি হ্যাচারি করেছি এবং ভবিষ্যতে আমাদের এই হ্যাচারির সংখ্যা উদ্যোক্তা পর্যায়ে আরো বাড়ানোর পরিকল্পনা আছে। ধন্যবাদ।
So what Mr. Nazrul mentioned is so far more than 52,000 households are involved with crab farming in 5 coastal districts of Bangladesh. And in terms of scaling up, they already are setting up 3 new hatcheries. And in the future, the plan is to empower the beneficiaries to so that they can set it up their own hatchery and start commercial operation. Thank you.
Thank you for that as well. I've got a question actually for Masum. Masum, what are your plans for the future? Is this something that you want to not only just create more and extend, but also perhaps move into other areas as well with crabs?
মাসুম ভাই, উনি আপনার কাছে জানতে চাচ্ছেন যে আপনার ভবিষ্যৎ পরিকল্পনাটা কি, মানে কাঁকড়া চাষকে আপনি আরো কিভাবে ছড়িয়ে দিতে চান?
যেহেতু আমি এখন হার্ট সেলের চাষ করি, আর বর্তমানে আমাদের এই উপকূলীয় এলাকাতে সফট সেল ক্র্যাবের একটা ব্যাপক জনপ্রিয়তা আছে এবং দেশের বাইরেও এর ব্যাপক জনপ্রিয়তা আছে। তো সেজন্য আমার ভবিষ্যৎ ইচ্ছা আছে যে হার্ট সেলের পাশাপাশি একটা সফট সেলের খামার তৈরি করা। এবং যেহেতু আমরা এই সুন্দরবন এলাকায় আছি, এখানে বাংলাদেশ তথা এর বাইরেও বিভিন্ন টুরিস্টরা এখানে সুন্দরবনে ঘুরতে আসে। তো এই জন্য এখানে একটা রেস্টুরেন্ট তৈরি করা এবং যেখানে অনেকগুলো কাঁকড়ার আইটেম রাখা, হার্ড সেল প্লাস সফট সেল, এবং এটার মাধ্যম দিয়ে দেশের মানুষ যাতে এই বিভিন্ন রেসিপির কাঁকড়া পাইতে পারে সেই ব্যবস্থা করব। এবং ফেসবুকের মাধ্যমে একটা পেজ খুলে এই সফট সেল কাঁকড়া, হার্ড সেল কাঁকড়ার বিভিন্ন অ্যাড তৈরি করে দেশের ভিতরে যাতে বিক্রি করা যায়, এরকম একটা চিন্তা ভাবনা আছে। আর যেহেতু আমরা হার্ড সেল প্লাস সফট সেলেরই চাষ করি, তো আমাদের কাঁকড়ার দরকার, যে কারণে ভবিষ্যতে ব্যক্তিগত উদ্যোগে একটা ক্ষুদ্র হ্যাচারি তৈরি করা এবং যার মাধ্যমে নিজের প্রয়োজন মিটে পার্শ্ববর্তী অন্যদেরকে এই কাঁকড়া দিয়ে সহযোগিতা করা, এটাই হচ্ছে ভবিষ্যৎ পরিকল্পনা।
So Qasa, what he mentioned is that currently he's involved only with hard shell farming, but he can see that the soft shell crab farming is also increasingly getting popular in the local market as well as in the export market. So his plan is to expand his business to soft shell farming. And what he mentioned is very interesting, that he has seen a lot of tourists coming every year to see the Sundarban from abroad as well as the local tourists. So his plan is to set up a restaurant where he will sell different items prepared with crab, and also to do promotions with through Facebook. So he also plans to open a Facebook page for his restaurant. And regarding the other big commercial plan he has is, since the crab farming is getting popular, he plans to set up his own crab hatchery, which will feed his own farm, and the rest he can also sell to the nearby crab farmers. So over to you.
Thank you so much for all of you and all your answers as well. It's great to see this project just getting bigger and bigger, and the plan's getting more ambitious as well. And personally, Masum, if I ever have the opportunity to come to the Sundarban region, it'd be great to actually be at your restaurant as well, if it ever does come to pass. So I will definitely hold you to that. Susan, thank you for all those questions. We are now out of time. It's gone really, really quick for me, but we've made a huge amount of progress in looking at these 2 projects in the northeast and the southwest of Bangladesh, Hilip Kalip and PACE projects. It's clear that there is a lot of good work going on to ensure that communities are able to adapt, survive, thrive, but equally as well that there is so much more work that needs to be done. I myself have clearly learned a lot, but also it's something I hope that others now are going to be focused on, because climate change really is here. And it's, as Donald and so many others have said, it's about supporting local communities and really scaling up as well. So thank you very much for all of your time, for listening to me, and for being on these 2 virtual field trips with us. I'm going to pass over to Donald Brown again now, just to finish off with some closing remarks. Donald.
Thanks, Qasa, and we'll hold you to that. The Sundarbans are the most beautiful place, and as you can see, people really struggling to adapt to climate change there. So we'll make sure you get there and you have a crab lunch. So I think it was just really interesting as well. You know, we saw an example in Sundarbans, but IFAD supporting many projects in mangrove areas across the world, Senegal, Latin America, Indonesia, trying to protect and promote livelihoods in these very precarious environments. And as we heard, you know, these are really what we call nature-based solutions. You know, we're working with nature to protect communities and to adapt to climate change. So many thanks to all the participants, and especially our friends from Bangladesh today for the inputs. Just in closing then, I'd just like to say, you've heard a bit about ASAP. We've just launched what we call ASAP Plus, bigger, better, larger. And we are looking to raise $500 million in there. And as you've seen, that has a real impact blending with our larger programs. And if we're really serious about addressing the challenges faced by rural communities, it will be an important fund that we need to raise money for. So we call on donors, our members out there, to help contribute to that fund so we can really channel that money down to the poorest communities. And I think that's the key thing. That money goes right down, as we've seen, to the poorest communities. And we expect under the ASAP Plus to support about 10 million people to improve their livelihoods. And secondly, we're scaling up our partnerships with the Green Climate Fund, with the Global Environment Facility and the Adaptation Fund. And through that, by 2027, we hope to raise another $2 billion, again, to channel directly down to poor communities. And these partnerships are just so essential if we're really to help poor rural communities who are actually the victims of climate change. They haven't contributed to it, and often they're part of the solution, in not only in adaptation, but protecting and restoring landscapes and livelihoods there. So this is coming to the end, really, of our first event at COP26. It's not our last. We have a total of 31 events coming up over the next week or so in a number of areas: finance, energy, youth, urban areas. So we look forward to you joining us for those, including the next one after this, which is about low emission livestock production. Thank you very much. And thank you, Qasa.
Thank you.